The only way a Woody Wednesday on the beat can be better is if the stock watch is back. So it is time for some June stocks on the beat. He's Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. This is the Austin and Birm Show, and we've got just so much more information than we've had in weeks about the current Buckeyes.
We do, and it's still a lot of like, well, what does it really mean information? But the visuals are there. We can make some educated guesses based on things we've heard and based on the way things look and the way people look, and should be a good barometer for what to expect heading into July and August.
What about the way Peoples looks?
Yeah.
Because that is where I would begin. James Peoples, you and I both walked up to him after the first day of summer camp at Ohio State and like, hey, what's going on here? You look different. And he's like, no, I'm not that different. It's 211 pounds, what he said. And I think we were like, no, that can't be right, because he looks jacked out of his mind.
He's reshaped it. I don't know what he played at last year, but I think he was over 200. But he certainly looks like he's carrying that weight a whole lot different. And he better, right? I mean, he's the starting tailback at Ohio State. Regardless of all the conversation in the offseason about Bo Jackson or CJ Donaldson, like the running game is going to go as James Peoples goes for Ohio State. And they need him to be a guy that is replacing 2 second-round draft picks. So he looks like he's putting on the weight in the right spots to take the hits, to be a little bit more physical. But certainly a kid that you look at and you're like, well, that's what running backs are supposed to look like.
Over 3 camp days and, talking to James Peoples on the first one and then seeing Carlos Lachlan coach high school kids, it's like, I just feel like I'm going to be a prisoner of the moment and go stock way up on the entire room, because I don't know that I've ever seen an Ohio State position coach stop drills with campers who are never going to play at Ohio State, who aren't even going to sniff an offer, and make them do up downs and interrupt a lovely Tuesday afternoon. Carlos Lachlan, we said it before, we'll probably keep saying it. That was another example of just how intense of a person and coach and motivator he is. And when you extrapolate that now, because I do think this is the first full cycle. We talked to Carlos Lachlan earlier in the year about coming in the middle of camp, the last 2 weeks of spring camp after Tony Alford left a year ago. Whether it was a full recruiting cycle or Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson were here. And yes, he deserves credit for what happened after he arrived and the way they got through the season. It's like, well, successful year 1, but then year 2 is maybe a more intense and valuable evaluation. All signs are good so far.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you could give him credit for making sure Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins stayed here and that they got better. I think both of them did. But to your point, like the true evaluation of Carlos Lachlan as a coach, as a recruiter, as a developer, as an evaluator, all that stuff is happening now. And he seems pretty relaxed. I mean, he's not a guy, he's relaxed for him. I don't mean like relaxed.
That's not a normal person relaxation.
I mean, he's comfortable. He's settled into Ohio State. He does not seem like he's still walking on eggshells. And I like watching the new coaches. I'm a huge fan of what Tyler Bowen does when he's out here with the offensive linemen. Again, this is, not really Wednesday morning when we're recording this, folks. We like to be honest about that. So we're
turning over a new leaf.
We're recording that after the camp here at Ohio State on Tuesday. Wasn't a really great group of offensive linemen, but even watching Tyler Bowen with this group today, which is of the 3 different camp days, that's probably the worst group of offensive linemen. Still a couple of good players, but not the depth. And he is just very, very intentional in what he says, how he coaches, hands-on, getting in there with the kids. And I think it really makes a big difference for them. So, I mean, we can talk, and we did talk about the coaches on Monday, on the Monday edition of The Beat, but finally getting a chance to really see what these newer guys are about, especially, again, we've talked about Matt Patricia over and over again, but and it's not to knock anybody else, but like, I don't remember defensive players just always hugging Jim Knowles, right?
Like, don't recall ever seeing it, to be honest with you.
They seem to. I was talking to one of the guys who is going to be on my stock watch, which is Malik Hartford. We talked about him already last month when we started the beat. But boy, when you see him out here, 6'2", 200 pounds, like he just looks different. And he's a guy that had moments as a freshman that could have broken him, and he seems very, very settled in and mature and understanding that the position may not still be his, but he likes where he's at. And I talking to him a little bit on Tuesday, you could tell that this is a kid that sees an opportunity, and I wouldn't be surprised if he seizes an opportunity as well, because the size is there. He's finally physically ready to absorb the hits that he delivers, which I think is an important piece of the puzzle. Definitely a guy that I think we talk a lot about Jalen McLean. We've talked about Fahim Delane. We've talked about all the other safeties. And don't forget that Malik Hartford is still the guy most likely to be lining up next to Caleb Downs.
Yeah. It doesn't even feel, to me, it doesn't feel like a bold prediction. I think he's going to be starting against Texas. And I've said that on previous stock watches. I said that throughout spring camp. Don't forget about Malik Hartford. Matt Guerreri and his family love Malik Hartford. He's getting praised in the weight room for the work because he's finally healthy and able to do that stuff. He got just a week and a half ago, he was an Ohio State Dude of the Week for his workouts.
We should do that in stereo all the time. Dude of the Week.
We didn't plan that.
Yeah, that was good.
It worked out perfectly.
What worked out perfectly?
Dude of the Week.
Dude. What worked out perfectly? Dude of the week. Yeah, that's it.
Now
we're talking.
Now
we're
it was
grooving.
way more. It was better when it was natural.
Yeah.
But I think he's going to be starting. And that's not because Jalen McLean's not really good, because he is. It could be a stock up for the entire safety room if we're just going to expand out the conversation.
Stock up on everyone.
Everyone. Well, I mean, it doesn't feel like there's, from the people that we've seen, the next Buckeye that walks out of this door that I'm like, oh, what have you been doing?
Yeah.
Like,
there's not a lot of those.
You've just been eating potato chips on the couch. Like, those people don't actually exist in this building, I don't think. But not the ones that show up after workouts, after OTAs or whatever they call them, their voluntary workouts or involuntary at 6:30 in the morning, and then come back out because you love being around the game. Those people, the Sonny Styleses of the world, the Jeremiah Smiths of the world, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, the ones who've been at Austin Sareveld, the ones that have been at every camp, they're not wasting opportunities. Talked to Luke Montgomery afterwards as well. He's like, I'm excited for 7-on-7. I want to, maybe I'll officiate and grab a referee shirt for tomorrow, because that's an offensive lineman's dream to be able to just go play 7-on-7. I was like, I will probably miss 7-on-7, but that's the difference between me and him, is like, he just wants to be around the game every single day.
Well, I was going to ask, and this is a stock watch. It's not a, how was your Tuesday watch, but I do think that there is something to be said for the guys that keep coming back out here. Some of them are required. Austin Sareveld, from what I've understood, is part of like a class that fine. But Jeremiah Smith doesn't need to be out here, and Brandon Ennis doesn't
need to be anywhere here.
He doesn't. They don't need to be out here, but and especially for JJ, because he knows when he walks out here, he becomes the most important thing on the field. And every recruit that's here that Ohio State is actually camping and invested in is like, oh my gosh, there's JJ Smith. Every kid who's here just because they want to work out at Ohio State is going, oh my gosh, there's JJ Smith. Can I get a picture? Can I do that? Like, he doesn't have to do that. And I think it says a ton about him that he continues to put up with it. Not put up with it, embraces it.
Well,
life's all about
it's
perspective.
It's a matter of perspective.
I have a person who we have not really seen out here, who I saw out here last Thursday.
Got eyes on.
And we are waiting. And this is one we've been waiting on for a couple of years. This is a stock that's held fairly steady. I think what I saw out of Kenyatta Jackson physically looked different. Something looks different. He is much more cut up than he was last time we saw him. And I was just like, man, it's all yours. Like,
it is.
I joked, not really joked, but I talked with Edric and Caden McDonald last week about all the pressure on their shoulders, but there's a whole lot of it on Kenyatta Jackson's shoulders as well. And his shoulders look bigger. That's all I'm saying. Like, I think
he's preparing for the moment.
I think that there's an opportunity. If he can end up having a double-digit sack year, then a lot of the concerns we have about the Ohio State defensive line goes away. So he's the most well-positioned to have that type of breakout year, and seeing him in workouts out here last Thursday really leading the way, which is something we have not seen from him, was a bit of an eye-opener for me. So I've been kind of holding on to that since last week, because he was the guy like in charge of things.
Sure.
And that's something we haven't seen him do before.
I think it's worth reiterating. I just barely mentioned it on Snap Judgments on Thursday. It's like, well, just a quick health update. Well, Will Kacmarek got the boot off. Yeah. He's not using, he doesn't have to scoot around anymore. He'd been working on the upper body for the last few weeks, which was important. And then you're getting back from the, I think it was a fracture maybe in the foot, something like that, lower body issue.
something in the foot.
Getting back to running, getting back to moving around, and being, who's the tight end who's going to be out there with Keenan Bailey leading drills? Who wants to take that next step? I think there's a challenge to Will Kacmarek that's different from a year ago, which was you're going to make the leap from Ohio University and the MAC. You were wanting to prove yourself. That's the motivating fuel that he's got. And I think he largely did that. Maybe he was appreciated more when he was hurt than when he was contributing before the injury at Oregon or once he got back during the playoff run. Doesn't matter. But now the same opportunity is in front of him, and it's not that he doesn't get along with Max Clare or understand why Keenan Bailey and Ryan Day wanted to bring in one of the best pass-catching targets at that position in the country in the transfer portal. It was not a slight on him, but if he took it that way and as another opportunity to prove himself, I think that's a good thing. And just seeing him, the way he carries himself, you mentioned the word comfort for Carlos Lachlan.
Yeah.
I think that
there's a lightness in his step.
I think when Will Kacmarek got here and he thought he belonged, and it took 5, 6, 7 days in spring camp, it was like, this is shocking, and the competition in practice is like different. And I don't mean it's going to shock anyone to have 50 cameras in front of your face compared to one
coming
or two.
from Ohio University to here.
The on-field, the off-field, everything is going to be different. And I thought he did a really good job acclimating to that, but you can understand why that would make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't sense any of that for him on or off the field now into this second year at Ohio State. So I know what the expectations are for Max Clare. I know that when we have these tight end conversations and it comes back to how many catches, how many yards, year of the tight end, all those other things, that's not going to be the way that you measure necessarily Will Kacmarek's impact on this team. But a healthy version of him, and if he just simply duplicated what Luke Farrell brought at the end of 2020, 2021-ish, that's a huge deal for Ohio State, but I think he can elevate that standard a little bit.
Well, because it is an adjustment. There was the adjustment last year, and the leap you have to make from being an Ohio University tight end to being an Ohio State University tight end. But now you have to be an all Big Ten level type of player. Like you're back here for a reason this year. Ohio State could have said, "Thanks for your contribution. Enjoy trying out for the NFL or going somewhere else." But like they know that he's got a value, and now he has to be. I'm not saying he's going to be an all Big Ten choice because I think Max Clare is going to win
the reception numbers won't get him that.
But the contribution and the way he plays the game has to be at that level, and I think it can be as long as he stays healthy, which has been now that he's been here a year and 6 months. Like he's had 2 extended injuries, so we'll see how that plays into things. But when he's healthy, there's no doubt that Will Kacmarek is a vital part of the offense moving forward. So without question. One player we have not talked enough about as a vital contributor in the offense is Bryson Rodgers.
Okay.
We just don't do it. And it's not his fault, okay? I want people to know that Bryson Rodgers is like a number 1 receiver at 75 schools around the country.
Sure.
Okay, so like just because there are 3 number 1 receivers ahead of him at Ohio State, and then there's 5-star Mylan Graham competing with him for that 4th wide receiver spot, like let us not continue to overlook Bryson Rodgers. He is going to make some plays. He is going to be the guy that plays first after Carnell Tate and JJ and Brandon Ennis. So I know people are excited about Mylan Graham. You're one of them, very high on the list on the Mylan pylon.
I might be highest on that list.
You might be, and I'm not saying you're wrong long term. I'm just saying the continued conversation around here and on these grass fields and these turf fields and inside of the building here is stop overlooking Bryson Rodgers, you morons. That's what I've been told.
Okay.
And so
that was an insider stock tip.
Yeah, this is an insider stock trading tip. Stop overlooking. And we've talked about Bryson Rodgers before in a very similar breath to Aaron Scott on the defensive side of the ball. And I think the conversation is like virtually the same. We are not doing them a service by only talking about the freshmen or the new guys because Bryson can play and he's up to almost 200 pounds. Like he's finally, when he got here, it was like 165 pounds. So you start to see it now. And he's out here just as much as JJ and Carnell and Brandon. And he's there with them the whole time. Just let's not forget that he exists because I think we've probably not talked about him enough.
Yeah. It's a difficult conversation to have, right? I guess I've fallen into this trap that I try to avoid where I'm definitely excited for what Malik Hartford can do for Ohio State, and I see the vision, and I point to that. It's like, well, we overlook him. He had the injury, had the adversity, and it's like that's not exactly the same path for Bryson Rodgers, but the way that the recruiting machine rolls along for Ohio State, it's easier than any other position. It's like, well, on to the next one, and even beyond Milan Graham, just like, whoa.
We say here's a guy in year 3. He's got players ahead of him, and he's got players behind him, and we just assume, I think, at times that you can't be found in the middle there, and that's not true.
Yeah, well, I think I hope for Bryson Rogers' case, because we see the upside every day that Jeremiah or Carnell Tate didn't need, heavy dose of reps that we were in there throughout spring. Bryson Rogers capitalized on every rep that he got that I saw, just the same way that Milan Graham did. So, and naturally, some of the attention gravitates towards that younger guy. So, like, I understand that and cognizant of it, but I guess it's because we're coming off of the end of the Jaden Ballard cycle, where it's the same deal, not identical, similar profiles physically, athletically. The ball skills, you can see them every day. And when he got the opportunities in practice, like, well, why isn't there a more consistent role for Jaden Ballard? Well, the guy's ahead of him, and he was trapped in that bubble, and not everyone escapes it. So I think Bryson Rodgers can, but it's like, will he with a meaningful role? I don't know.
I think that the guys that escape it have to have a different mindset and different mentality. And this is not to knock Jaden Ballard, who I think is going to have a dynamic year at Wisconsin this year for the Badgers. The difference is...
Well, who's going to throw it to him?
Luke Fickell. Bryson Rogers has had a chip on his shoulder that carries him on. I don't think that Jaden had that. Jaden was kind of like, c'est la vie. It is what it is. Laissez-faire. That is not Bryson Rogers' attitude. He is paying attention. Like, he sees what people say about him, and he knows, and he uses it to motivate him. And so I don't know that Jaden Ballard always did that. And so to me, the difference between Malik Hartford and Aaron Scott and Bryson Rogers is that those guys are all very cognizant of what is being said, and they see, but they're also smart enough to realize, like, hey, these are good players next to me. So it's not like they're mad about it, but it is being used as a fuel, which I think is the proper way to be motivated.
No, I think that's good. And I'm not coming at it from the perspective of, like, Bryson Rogers is going to bump into the same ceiling that Jaden Ballard did. When I said there were similarities, that's going to be the one that has to be different, the mentality piece. And, all signs, dating all the way back to going into the portal and pulling back out, was a very mature decision. And, you applaud that. That tells you that he recognized the development plan, also what the roster looked like, the depth chart situation, and that he believes in that, and then he believes in himself.
So it also shows that he's, at that time, was prone to emotional manipulation.
Sure.
And so he's grown out of that, and I think that that's just as important.
Yeah. So we'll see what that means for these guys. As you mentioned, Birm, there's another month and a half of summer workouts to go. Training camp starts on July 31st, and we'll probably have more stocks by then, because we still have another week of camp.
Big Ten Media Day stonks. I mean, that's where we're gonna dive in there. It's a month from now, right? Like, that's when we really know.
Vegas for Media Days. Stock down. Tony Petiti, dude, his stock is tanking.
Come on, Tony.
We're gonna have to get into
Petiti guy.
They've got some problems going on.
He's got other stuff to worry about, like Penn State and UCLA now being owned by private equity or whatever that means. I don't even know what it means, but it sounds bad for college football.
I can't wait to ask Martin Jarmon about that decision.
Neat.
When we get to Las Vegas. I bet I don't. I don't spend any time talking to UCLA, but I could, which is the exciting part. Anyway, it's a Wednesday on the beat. The stocks were back. Hope you enjoyed them. 7 on 7.
7 on 7 camp all day out here at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It's supposed to be in the high 80s, very sunny. Going to be a hot one, boys and girls. So we'll try to have, you won't be here for this. I'll be out here, and I'll try to see what I can glean that's worth talking about on the Thursday morning episode of The Beat, or talking stuff at some point if I can find a way to make that happen.
Thursdays.
3 South Thursday.
We talk about those things. There might be similar thoughts to these. I don't know. Maybe I'll come up with some different topics, and we'll break that down on Thursday morning on The Beat. For Birm, I'm Austin. We will see you then.